IVM.
And if something really bad happens, they can go to a hospital and Plum will manage everything, including their claim. So they can just open the Plum app, uh, scan a claim form, and it's done. Organization giving insurance is I think it's a must-have, but you shouldn't wait to get into a poor health and then use insurance. You have to take steps towards your own well-being. And this is something that corporates can also help, right? And that's where we actually saw that instead of that 50-60% adoption, can we really take that to 100% adoption? So when we think of comprehensive, to us it is preventive, followed by primary, followed by secondary and tertiary.
Folks, welcome to Paisa Vaisa. I'm your host Anupam Gupta, B50 on Twitter. And on today's episode, I welcome back Abhishek Poddar, co-founder and CEO of Plum Insurance, this time in our studio. We're talking about Health Report of Corporate India 2023. So folks, last year, the entire year, we hardly had anything on insurance. Health, life, group, anything. And this year, in the first 2 months itself, we've done quite a bit. So with that in mind, I'm thrilled to have Abhishek with us. Abhishek, welcome back to Paisa Vaisa. You were with us online in October 2022. My God, seems really so long ago. So thank you so much for doing this again for our listeners.
Hey, no, thank you so much for having me again. I think I did a decent job that you invited me back.
Yeah.
But it looks and feels much better to be doing this in person. So thank you so much.
Always face to face. So I want to start with a recap for Plum. Just for maybe there are some listeners out there who don't know what Plum has done, or they've not heard the episode you've done back with us in October 2022. So just an intro to Plum.
Absolutely. I think one of the biggest things that have changed in 1 year is that a lot of more people now know that, hey, Plum is not the beauty brand, it's also an insurance brand.
Okay.
But at Plum, we are building corporate insurance. We are building insurance for employees, for their dependents. We are building healthcare for employees. And on top of that, I think this is some of the things that have changed since we last met. We are also building business insurance. So that means as an organization, you can insure yourself through director and officers insurance, liability insurance, etc. So I would think of Plum as a corporate insurance product.
Yeah. So if I divide the business, then you've got corporate insurance, you've got business. I mean, what are the lines that you've got?
So we look at ourselves as 3 business units right now. Number 1 is employee benefits. Employee benefits includes all kind of employee insurance, be it medical, life insurance, accident insurance, and all lines of healthcare for them. Number 2 is we look at B2B corporate insurance. We call it business insurance. So this includes your liability insurance, cyber insurance, any kinds of insurance that a business would need to protect itself. And the third is, as an employee, you've got your corporate cover from your organization, but you may need more healthcare, more insurance for yourself. So we call it your B2B2C product line, wherein we build healthcare products, top-up products, life insurance products that you may directly purchase from Plum without any intervention from the corporate.
Yeah. So if I have to understand the model, how I mean, are you like a distributor, a tech layer, a full service provider? Because obviously, I don't think that you do insurance yourself. That would come from someone who's actually an insurance company. So if you could just explain how that works.
Absolutely. So we are doing everything minus the underwriting. That's the short story. But I think the lines are really getting blurred in terms of what like a broker would do or a TPA would do or an insurance manufacturer would do. I think the lines were very clear 5 years ago, 10 years ago. But right now, if you really ask someone who's using Plum, they would think as Plum as a platform where they can go in and take their preventive health checkup. They will go in, consult a doctor, and if something really bad happens, they can go to a hospital and Plum will manage everything, including their claims. So they can just open the Plum app, scan a claim form, and it's done, right? Yeah. So, and there is nothing, you would never need to talk to an insurer or a TPA. So for an employee, Plum is everything. But if you ask me technically, we use an insurer in the back end who is doing the underwriting, which is mandated by the IRDA.
So you're saying that, and you've got very large clients. I mean, you've got people who employ, I think you've got a lot of delivery startups with you. You're based in Bangalore. So when I look at it this way, it's like if I'm joining, say, XYZ company, the minute I come in to the time that, God forbid, I need any health insurance, you are the guy that I speak to, your team, and
For them, if you just stop 10 people of an organization, ask them, hey, who's your healthcare provider or your insurance provider? They would say Plum. They wouldn't probably know any other name.
Yeah. I mean, because insurance is a tough product for the consumer, and especially health insurance. I mean, you would rather you don't use it rather than use it. But when you do, you provide, I mean, a very seamless experience right up till, say, discharge, settlement of bills and everything in the hospital.
And more than that, right?
Wow.
Sometimes it may be that you're going to a hospital that is not in the network as well, right? So that means that, and you would have spent maybe a couple of lakh of rupees.
Yeah.
You want, and you have burned that hole in your pocket. You want that money as soon as possible in your bank account. So it's also helping employees post the hospitalization. And we briefly talked about healthcare, right? So we don't look ourselves as just purely an insurance provider. A core mission of Plum is how do we really improve the health and financial wellness of people. So we look at health more holistically than just insurance. For us, insurance is like the last thing that you probably need.
Nice.
But what can we do? What are 10 things that we can do before you really need an insurance?
Very interesting. So last time I remember when we had our episode, you spoke about the diversity product. I want to talk about that because that I thought was quite important. You don't have too many people even thinking about this, let alone having a product. So first, what is it? How has it progressed so far?
So diversity is a very, very wide topic, right? I mean, if you think of diversity could mean, do you support people of different gender? Diversity could mean that, hey, can your employees add same gender as a partner? Diversity could mean, can you support people who have disabilities or differently abled? So there are many different definitions of diversity. I think what has changed in the last 1 year since we spoke, I think the conversations around diversity has expanded.
Nice.
Thankfully, a lot of people leaders, a lot of CEOs have started talking to us. And that's one of the things that is very key to us, which is bring this topic to the forefront when they are discussing health insurance or healthcare for their employees. So I think the great achievement has been that the conversations have started. What hasn't happened so far is those conversations leading to impact. So I would really say that the implementation of these diversity at organizations is still very low. If you look at our healthcare report that you talked about, I would really say less than 1% organization right now is really taking care of diversity angle for their employees, their family members. But the great part is those conversations have started. It may take another 1 or 2 years for that impact to start happening.
Yeah, I mean, you're raising awareness of it itself is a victory of sorts. Okay, now let's get into the meat of this episode. The Health Report of Corporate India 2023. And you've called it an annual health checkup of corporate India. I like the sound of that. But just why did you do this? What's the background? What is it about? Statistically, what does it cover, etc.?
So, see, the core of why we did this report in the first place was our core mission is to improve the health. And the way we want to achieve this is through partnering with organizations that really care about their employees. And one of the fundamental things is, and you briefly mentioned as well, that one of the key steps is education, awareness. So one of the things that we noticed was when we spoke to CHROs, they didn't know what is the right benchmark, what our people around them are doing. They wanted a mirror for themselves to see, okay, where do they stand? And this report is collection of roughly 10,000 data points that we had. This has data points of tens of thousands of consultations that we did. This includes data points of conversations, hundreds of conversations that we did with CHROs, and assimilating all of that to figure out where do we really stand right now, with the goal that it's just showing the mirror to all the people leaders of where we are, but also then taking a stance on where we should be on different aspects of healthcare. So this is actually not just about insurance, but more holistic healthcare report. And the reason, I think one of the things that you asked is like why a scorecard, or like why a health checkup report of corporate India. We have been talking about health checkup report of people. We really thought that, hey, this is a good time now to spin it and say, hey, this is really a health checkup report of an organization.
Yeah. This is the first edition?
This is the first edition. We have done a slightly smaller versions of this in the previous avatars, but this is the most comprehensive version that we have done so far.
Yeah, you plan to make it what, annual? Or
we want to do it annual.
Yeah.
We want to keep expanding. We want to keep going deeper into how we do this. We have got a lot of feedback on what the HR leaders want more from this report. But this has been the most comprehensive version that we've done so far.
Yeah. Has anyone else tried something of this sort? Or
There has been more versions on this for
Right.
sure. So I think, there are, if you look at the more traditional brokers like a Aon or a Marsh, they do publish some of the insurance-specific reports.
Right.
If you look at certain healthcare organizations, they publish more healthcare-specific reports. We took an angle which is we'll do it for corporates, and we'll combine healthcare and insurance, which that is core to us. So we took a different angle to it, but I think there are different variations of these reports that have been out there. We are not like the first ones to do this.
Yeah. There's one question that I remember asking you, I think in the October 2020 episode, and I want to just repeat that right now for our listeners before we get into the other side, that do you think health insurance or insurance of any sort, health and life. So when someone is signing up for a job, right, traditionally insurance would not figure in the list of criteria to consider when, you've got salary, you've got office location, you've got working hours, you've got culture, you've got a lot of other stuff. But insurance, at least for the longest time, wasn't part of this. Whereas in the US, I think it's fairly, going by the Hollywood movies that I see, I hear, sometimes in an office situation when they're considering jobs, do they have dental? So stuff like that. Where are we now in this? And if someone were to come to you and say, Abhishek, I'm considering 2 offers, help me on the insurance part on this. How do I choose a good plan? Or how do I know whether this guy is offering me better than that guy?
Absolutely. I think 3-4 answers to that. So one is, I think India is still far behind US. It's because of cultural reasons. It's also because of the healthcare cost reasons. If you look at US, there's almost 100% penetration of corporate insurance, corporate health insurance in US. I think India is still far away. But we have come a long way in the last 3-4 years. The awareness of employee insurance as a benefit has increased tremendously, and hence the conversations that the employees have with their HR leaders or with the managers before joining has increased tremendously. And because of that, now it is almost becoming like a requirement that any organization who has started to grow to, let's say, 10 employees, 20 employees, is like a must-have for any organization these days. As an employee, if you're joining an organization, is health insurance really important? I would say the candid answer is it really depends on your situation, right? If you already have your health insurance for yourself or your parents, you don't have any troubles in terms of getting your own insurance, then it's not the most important thing, right? Then figure out, really the essence of what you're getting. Let's say if you have 2 options, go after the kind of the work that you're getting. And actually that is the most important thing,
always,
irrespective of, right? But let's say if you're in a situation where you have an ailing parent and you're not able to get their insurance, you probably don't have any other option than a corporate insurance, right? In which case, it's something that you have to consider. It's just not an option for you. And when you're not thinking of, let's say both the companies are giving insurance, I think one of the things I would really say is it's not about choosing between 2 companies, but having a more candid conversation with your HR leader or with the manager on what really insurance means, right? Because insurance comes with a lot of flavors. An insurance of 2 different companies can mean very, very different thing. I've seen organizations who can give 3 lakh cover. I've seen organizations that can give 30 lakh cover.
Wow.
An organization have no maternity and versus an organization can have 1.5 lakh maternity benefit and so on, right?
Yeah.
An organization can cover parents, an organization may not even cover your spouse. So I think just asking that question that, hey, do you have an insurance? Do you give me insurance is not enough. I would really recommend that individual to really ask those deeper questions on what does that insurance really mean for me? Yeah. Can you explain that in 10 bullet points to me?
Yeah, and make it more relevant to your needs.
Okay.
Abhishek, headline findings of the health report of corporate India. Sorry, I need help on that. Yeah.
I think the top 2-3 things. Number one, the adoption of preventive and primary care is still very low in India. Less than 10% people really take primary care in India today. which means that they keep, and this is especially for corporate employees, they keep postponing. Let's say if I have a mild fever, mild cold, I keep postponing my conversation with the doctor. And that typically leads to a much larger and an adverse outcome. And it's not just for you. You're suffering, your family members are suffering, but it is also leading to higher claims as well, eventually, right? So finding number one was just the adoption of primary care has to increase. Number two, it's on the same lines, but preventive care. We are seeing roughly 50-60% people do health checkups right now. Still 40 to 50% people are not doing their health checkups. And that is to us like a critical step towards improving your health, right? Organization giving insurance is I think it's a must-have, but you shouldn't wait to get into a poor health and then use insurance. You have to take steps towards your own well-being. And this is something that corporates can also help, right? And that's where we actually saw that instead of that 50-60% adoption, can we really take that to 100% adoption? Number three was on the diversity point that you brought up earlier. I think the conversations have really started happening, but if you look at the kind of healthcare that has been built so far, there is still a lot of room to go. I would really say, hey, less than 1% organizations have really done the job. 99% of organizations really need to do a lot better with respect to diversity. There are a lot more headlines into what kind of coverages, etc., that people provide, but there we are just seeing gradual increase. I think the median right now is roughly 3 lakh kind of a cover that people provide. Even Indian government today says, hey, 5 lakh is the Ayushman Bharat cover.
Exactly.
Right. So why do Indian corporates still provide 3 lakh as the median cover? Which to us is insufficient. Still 50% of the organizations do not provide maternity cover. And to us, that is one of the highest used cover. If an organization is giving insurance and it's covering everything, within the insurance, we see almost 30% of the claims coming from maternity. So imagine 30% of the claims are maternity claims.
That's a large number,
So imagine if you're not providing maternity, it means that you are essentially not allowing 30% of the people who needed hospitalization benefit not use that hospitalization benefit. They're using it, but they're spending out of their pocket. So those are some of the smaller details of the cover. But I think to us, those are gradual changes that are happening. But the more stark ones are the adoption of preventive and the primary health.
Abhishek, just to pick up from what we left on in the previous part on primary and preventive, right? So the insurance industry gives products that are reactive, in the sense that something happens to you and then you claim and then you get reimbursed, whatever. How can the industry itself become proactive? I think you can think of it as a link between primary and preventive. Are there products now that reward? I mean, I've had a few insurance providers come on the show and talk about stuff like this. I've seen ads also of policies that give you back your money if you achieve certain benchmarks. So I want your view on this, that are there products that actually reward proactive behavior and that can help bridge this gap between primary and preventive?
Yeah, so I'll answer in maybe 2-3 sections. One is there are definitely products that reward you for good health. It could be, hey, you walk X steps on average and we will give you a discount of X% in the next year. Or if you do this activity, we will make your health checkup free and so on. So there are definitely products within insurance that reward that. But my fundamental challenge is the preventive and primary health doesn't really cost a lot, right? Insurance, if you look at insurance, technically insurance is meant to really safeguard you from a 5 lakh or a 10 lakh kind of an expense. It's not really meant to cover your 1,000 rupees OPD expense or a 2,000 rupees health checkup. So I don't think insurance can really do a lot in terms of changing the human behavior of spending on preventive or primary healthcare. I think it is more to do with what organizations or what people can fundamentally do to change that behavior. I think organizations can definitely be a facilitator in that, be that change agent. But eventually the responsibility lies with us because the cost of these is very, 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 very low. I think of this as more as a healthcare problem rather than an insurance problem, where in India especially, can that human behavior change from just a reactive behavior where we are always landing in the hospital to a more proactive behavior?
Yeah, so I think that's where I find a kind of an irony or dichotomy or whatever word you want to put out. Then you're also a CEO, so you lead a lot of people yourself. I find it weird that most jobs, almost all jobs, make you sit in one place. The whole sedentary lifestyle thing
Yeah.
and all that, and that itself causes a lot of things. And listen, it's like you said that your health is your responsibility first. Now, is it the CEO's responsibility also? That I have to take care of the health of all my employees. I mean, of course, intuitively the answer is it should be, because a healthy employee is a happy employee and he'll have less kharcha and all that. But how much is the CEO supposed to do, and how much is you can't expect that you slog for 12 hours a day in one place. Now there also you push it and say, no, 2 hours you have to do 10,000 steps. How do you resolve this?
Yeah, interestingly, so we had an all hands in the company, and we talked about this topic at length in the all hands. And this is one of the questions that we get almost in every all hands. We do this. We do a monthly all hands at Plum. I think the answer is yes and no. I think it is eventually individual's responsibility to take care of their health. No one else can, right? Your family member can, your spouse can say, hey, go and do 30 minutes of gym. My wife says that, right? But eventually, if I'm not doing it, it's my responsibility, not my wife's responsibility, or not my dad's responsibility, right? No one can really make you do something if you are not really committed to your health and well-being. A lot of times, the employees will externalize their poor health on external circumstances. That, hey, my health is poor because of my job conditions. My health is poor because of the working hours. My health is poor because of the seats that we get, of the food that we get. I think it's because it's much easier to externalize than internalize. It's a challenge. But one of the things that we talked about even at the all hands today or yesterday was, hey, this is eventually your responsibility. The reason I said partly yes as well is I think our job as leader is to, one, facilitate. So if employees really want to invest in their health, I think we can do a lot of work to facilitate and help those employees. That means designing your policies, designing your leaves policy, designing your office hours, designing your health benefits program, so that you're helping the employees. If they want to invest, we are here to help them invest into their health. Yeah. And number two, set examples. These are a lot of times, I'm 37, 38-year-old. A lot of our employees are 20-year-old who have not seen what happens if they don't invest in their health. If we don't set examples for them, if we don't talk about this enough, they won't know what is the worst case possible. So I think that's the reason I said partly yes. I think partly it is our responsibility, but eventually the ball lies in your court.
Yeah, I'm just thinking because corporate India is much younger than corporate USA. They've just for that, and upon that you've got the fact that India's age itself is very young. So I was just wondering, how does this work? I mean, how much of this is within the CEO's domain or CHR or whoever it is? And we haven't even spoken about mental health, by the way.
Yeah.
Can we just have a small point of view on that? Because we spoke about physical health, which is fine, food and exercise and gym and your work day and all that. But we know what's happening on the stress part.
Yeah.
It's evident in so many, pretty tragic incidents that are happening. And stress is something you can't define. Yeah. There's literally you can do all the health checkups in the world you want and you can't identify stress out there. But when it does happen, it doesn't look good. Anything there? What do you think?
Yeah, I think the answer is very similar. The only thing that changes with mental health is I think there is a slightly larger role that the organization has to play or the CEO has to play there. I think it's, to some extent, it's defined by the kind of culture that you're building. If you have a bad culture, no matter how good your employees are, no matter how much they want to invest in their mental health, they will always suffer. Right, so that's the reason I think with mental health, and I'm glad that you brought this up because I think it's slightly different from your physical health. That I think with respect to a great mental health, I think an organization can play a much larger role. But I think it is with mental health, it's not about your policies or your benefits that you're giving. It's more about the kind of culture that you build. It's more about the kind of people that you're bringing in. If you just build a bad culture, people will always be stressed out. If you build a great culture, people will always enjoy working in that environment.
I would love to talk more about that, but our discussion is on personal finance. Okay, now let's get into the report. Let's go back into the report. Less than 5% of employers offer comprehensive coverage spanning insurance, primary healthcare, and preventive healthcare. Did I get that number right?
Yeah.
Less than 5%.
Less than 5%. So when we think of comprehensive, to us it is preventive, followed by primary, followed by secondary and tertiary. If you look at all the corporates, maybe right now 50-60% of the people or corporates are giving some kind of insurance, right? Which is just secondary and tertiary insurance. If we include primary to that, that 50-60 number will fall to probably 20%. And now if we include preventive care, which then makes it comprehensive, it'll be in low single digit.
Yeah, just help me understand each of these. I mean, we are using some big words out here. We've got primary, secondary, tertiary, preventive. But for a listener who doesn't know what this means, he's just going to his job, going in the morning, coming back in the evening, and that's it. What products and what areas are we talking about when we start with preventive, move on to primary, secondary, tertiary? Just help us with that.
Absolutely. So preventive care is how do you prevent your health becoming worse, right? That can include just doing your annual health checkup, annual eye checkup, annual dental checkup. It may include just talking to a doctor once a year to make sure that everything is all right. So
and the cost of that is covered in the...
Cost of that could be covered in your healthcare, corporate healthcare budget, right? May not be insurance. It could be outside your insurance. Preventive can also include, let's say, programs around gym memberships, food, and it could be, let's say, healthy food, healthy snacks, right? So there's no limit of what you can do.
It all defined. I mean, it all depends on what the corporate thinks about what it means.
Absolutely. Please. Then moving on to primary care. Primary care is essentially, let's say, I have a slight cold, fever, etc. How do I get that addressed in the shortest amount possible? So primary care means going to a doctor, talking to a general practitioner or to a specialist to get a resolution to my small healthcare problems. It could also mean diagnostics, right? So the doctor will say, hey, go and do these XYZ tests. That also is primary healthcare. It may include medicines that I have to purchase. That also includes primary healthcare.
Yeah. So that includes, say, something like a CBC, thyroid, stuff like that.
Everything.
Okay.
Everything.
Go on,
but
please.
The same diagnostics, if you're doing it in a preventive manner, that is preventive.
Correct.
But if I'm doing it reactively,
in response to an illness,
that is in primary healthcare, right? So same health checkup can be in two parts.
Okay.
And then if something really bad has happened, that's when I go into a secondary or a tertiary care, which is when I'm actually taking a surgery. I'm doing an operation or I'm at hospital under observation. So that is secondary or tertiary care.
Yeah.
In India, most of the insurance, when you think of insurance, it primarily constitutes of secondary and tertiary care. I would say more than 95% of the insurance, even retail health insurance, if you look at, it will only be secondary or tertiary insurance. Technically, that is the right way to think about insurance as well, which is insurance really is required when you expect an expense of, let's say, a 5 lakh or a 10 lakh or a 1 crore. And your secondary and tertiary healthcare expenses are the more expensive one. Thankfully, so far in India, the primary and the preventive healthcare are very, very cheap, right? It's in the range of maybe like 300 rupees to 5,000, 10,000 rupees, which most of the people can afford. So you really don't need insurance. So insurance typically in India is related to secondary and tertiary care.
It was actually going to be my next question, that 95% is secondary and tertiary, less than 5% is comprehensive. From a CEO's perspective, from someone or the CFO's perspective who's actually sitting and making these costs and these contracts with someone like you, what's the cost difference out here?
So when a CFO or a CEO thinks about their employee benefits, they would split it into insurance and healthcare. It's not just insurance. If you're thinking about insurance, most of the insurance spend is anyways happening on the secondary and the tertiary care, right? So think of that as 95 or 100%. But only 5% or 10% of the organizations are really thinking of building a more comprehensive care. But if you as an organization are thinking of a more comprehensive care program, then you're looking at a 2x, 2.5x spend compared to a insurance only or a IPD only insurance kind of a program that you would do. Because the usage on the primary or a preventive care is much more, right? You would want 100% of your employees to go and have their annual health checkups. You want 100% of their employees to consult a doctor as and when required. And in a typical year, you would need at least 2 to 3 consultations in a family. So the total cost that is incurred on primary and preventive healthcare, if you think of like a 1,000 people company, it's almost similar or maybe 1.5x more compared to the secondary and the tertiary healthcare cost.
Yeah. What is the thinking of the companies that you work with? I mean, can you, with the conversations that you have with your clients or whatever you choose to call them, are, say, the startups different from, say, the established companies? Do you see a culture change happening going forward?
So there's definitely a culture change, but I would say maybe I'll give this in 2 steps. So larger organizations definitely have seen more demanding people over a longer period of time, and they build a more comprehensive healthcare plan, which includes your primary and preventive healthcare. If you look at startups, think of a 10 people startup or a 100 people startup, it really depends on the senior leadership or the founders of that organization. If those founders are people who are either coming from one of these very established companies who had a really good healthcare program in place, or they are really believers in promoting health, they would build healthcare programs which are as good as any MNC. If none of these conditions are true, they will start with very sharply defined healthcare program, which will only be your secondary and tertiary care insurance. And then over a period of time, as they grow, they will evolve their program into a more comprehensive program.
Okay, so Abhishek, just to wrap this entire thing up, what are the trends that you see going forward from the findings of this report? I mean, do you expect that CHRO, CEOs, whoever, this comprehensive thing will pick up pace, or employees will become more aware of this? So how do you see this moving forward?
So 3 things. One is, I think, employee awareness. There is a secular shift. There is a secular increase in the awareness of employees. They're becoming more and more demanding from their employers. And they're becoming more demanding not just with insurance, but with the more comprehensive healthcare that they want, because they're seeing that in their current organizations. Number 2, the quality of the insurance in itself is just increasing every year. Every year we are seeing, we have right now, I think, around 4,000 organizations that are using Plum. They do their annual renewal, and at least 60-70% of them, they will upgrade their insurance.
Nice.
It may be a small upgrade.
Sure.
It may be a small 3 lakhs to a 4 lakhs increase. It may be a small maternity increase from 50K to 60K, or adding some diversity or inclusion benefits within the product. But the great part is they are all open to this conversation. They are actually taking small steps every year. And we have to realize that, hey, organizations are also running on a tight budget. So they can't do all the changes within the same year. But the great part is they're all taking steps towards making their insurance better every single year.
Nice.
And the third part is the comprehensiveness of the healthcare. I think 3 years ago, when we thought about insurance, the only discussion was on insurance and not healthcare. I think those conversations have started happening. It's 5%, but I think if we meet next year, hopefully that number will be maybe in double digits, maybe in higher double digits, because those conversations have started happening. So those are 3 trends that we are seeing.
Good. Okay, I want to wrap this up with a very specific checklist for our listeners. Okay, I mean, in the old times when you're joining a new job, your dad would tell you, ye dekhna, wo dekhna, working hours, dekho, salary, dekho, ye, etc., etc. Or you would have someone you would go to say, okay, I'm joining a new job, congratulations, all the best, etc. You would have something with, this is what you should look forward to. Well, here you are. What are 3 questions that you will tell if someone comes to you and says, Abhishek, I'm starting a new job, I've got a health insurance plan, tell me 3 things I should look for. Or if those 3 things or 5 things, whatever, checklist. Either they're there, then great. Then I should be aware of them. If they're not there, then I want to go to my boss and tell them, put this in your insurance plan. Tell us.
So number 1, who all does it cover? Does it cover my immediate family? Does it cover my extended family, which includes parents, etc.? Number 2, how much coverage do you have? 3 lakhs, 5 lakhs, 10 lakhs, 20 lakhs. Number 3, how comprehensive the plan is. What is the maternity benefit, etc., and especially if you're a young employee. Number 4, beyond my IPD, which is your
Inpatient,
secondary and tertiary care, what does it cover? Do you support in preventive and primary care? So those are top 4 things I would ask.
Yeah, lovely. Fantastic. I mean, those are nice 4 questions to have when you're joining a job on your very first day. And I think this is something that will evolve over a period of time. I mean, the best insurance is if you don't need it all, but when you do, it always helps to have your company have your back, and,
Absolutely.
and at least ensure a smooth experience. I mean, no one has a smooth experience in hospitals, but still, I think, you think that's actually going to change. I mean, is the user experience going to change for hospitals?
It is actually changing. I think we hear a lot of negative stories, but if you really look at what we do is we monitor cashless discharge time.
Yeah.
And 3 years ago, the median cashless discharge time will be around between 90 to 120 minutes.
Okay.
Today, at least at Plum, we are seeing a median of around 40-50 minutes. So it is less than half of what it was 3 years ago, right? And that's a substantial change in how fast your insurance is getting processed at the hospital.
Sure.
There are some fundamental or infrastructure level challenges at the hospital, but I think the hospital themselves are incentivized to do this faster. They have their own challenges, but I think it is changing. I wouldn't lose hope on hospitals not doing the job.
And on a note of hope, we shall wrap this part of our discussion. My last question, standard question to all our guests. What book are you reading or any content recommendation for our listeners?
So right now I'm reading this book by Satya Nadella called Hit Refresh. This book talks about how he took a lot of legacy from the last 2 CEOs. He's the 3rd CEO of Microsoft, and really changed the shape of the organization, really moved the organization into what it is right now, a cloud-first organization.
Hit Refresh by Satya Nadella. Any lessons that you're taking away from that? I mean, some stuff that you read, you find out, I mean, and when you said 3rd, I'm assuming that it was Bill Gates, Steve Ballmer, and then him.
Correct.
So anything you like?
Yeah, so I'm still in the book, but the lessons that I've got so far is one, just think about the future, build for the future, take bets, and take bets on people.
Take bets on people. I love that. Yeah, that's actually a pretty important part of any CEO's job. So folks, that is a wrap on this episode of Paisa Vaisa. My guest, Abhishek Poddar, co-founder and CEO of Plum Insurance. Abhishek, thank you so much for doing this for our listeners, and all the best for the report. Come back when you have a new edition, or, keep coming back, because obviously insurance is something that we need to talk about, and especially corporate insurance, looking at it from an employee's perspective is something that's always useful. Thank you for doing this for our listeners.
Thank you so much.
IVM